method of advertising has always been on a street level. There is a printing company in my area that will print 5,000 glossy postcards for $200. And that is all the street promotion you will ever need when you're doing a club level show. And basically I have a little route where I drive once a week and I hit a bunch of record stores, and I replenish them, and I have a street team that will occasionally flyer shows for me, and of course there's stuff that goes to the venue itself, but basically I do a glossy postcard for every show that I do. So and generally I can get 2 shows to a card because, like I said, they're front and back. So usually for $100 you have 5,000 flyers, and they look incredible. The only added expense that I have is I have a professional graphic designer draw up all of my show flyers. So you've got $40 an hour for him to design it, but it usually only takes a couple hours to do that. So that's not that bad of an expense. And then occasionally I will do, if I really think I have a big show, I'll do radio, and that's just ludicrously expensive. It's basically $100 a spot, so you got to really pick and choose. And if I do a print ad in our local arts paper, I always figure if you're going to do it right. So I always do full page, and then I'll just jam like 6 or 7 shows onto it. That's about $2,300. So I'll usually do that if I know I have, for instance, in September I've got 6 shows coming up. So I think mid-August I'm going to run a great big spread. I'm going to have band logos and pictures. It's going to look fantastic. And so generally I try and get by with spending anywhere from $300 to $500 per show. Unless I really think I've got a knockout, then I'll spend more. But when you're dealing with a limited budget, you've got to keep those advertising expenses down. So I try and keep my advertising to around $500 or less, if at all possible.
Don't be afraid, participate.
You can enter in a search, and you can find people that are listening to the band that you're bringing in. And you can send them an email, you can send them a show flyer, and you can say, hey, your band that you've listed on your page that you listen to is coming to town. And I don't know a better way that you can promote than you can sit around for 2 hours and do that and hit 50, 60, 70 people, and you could spend 2 hours flyering a show and maybe get 2. So, you know, use your time as wisely as you can.
Your soul will be saved, just follow me.
Musicscene.org is wonderful. They've got a specific site for every city, every major city. I can't imagine anybody not using that. It's completely free. They usually toss a few perks to people who identify themselves as bands or promoters. Your posts usually get approved pretty quick. And basically just look for any sort of local music forum and post there and bump your posts.
Get ready to join the Paradise Crusade.
There are so many factors that are going into this, and it's really easy to point fingers at corporations, but I think that the corporations have played a part in this. I don't think they're totally at fault, but I do think that when you've gotten some of these bigger companies that have come in and bought venues and are promoting on sort of a national level instead of a local level, what you have is a company that is able to pay a band more than they are actually worth. Now that does not make the band con artists, nor does it necessarily make the promoting agency a con artist. But what it does is it sets expectations higher across the board. You know, the phrase, the rising tide floats all boats. Well, if one band says, well, they got X number of dollars when they went to such and such city, why can't we get that? All of a sudden, every band starts saying that, and basically you have booking agents that pretty much have their hands tied. And if they don't try and get a certain price, they know that this band will go somewhere else. And what happens is that affects the whole industry. You have ticket prices going up. You have bands that are refusing to go more local. They're going with national agencies, national promoters, and it really hurts the little guys. And when it hurts the little guys, that means it hurts the little venues, because the little venues can't afford to pay the bigger prices. Likewise, their fans probably are not equipped to handle the lower ticket or the higher ticket prices. And so it's sort of a great big trickle down. And can you really point the finger and can you say this one thing or this one corporation or this one person is the devil? Well, not really. And part of it too is the economy. We've been living in a crummy economy for going on 8 years now. And gas is really high, people don't want to travel, and when you're dealing at a club level, you're dealing with a lot more blue-collar people that don't have 30, 40, 50, 60 bucks to drop on a show. And which is maybe a good reason why metal is not as popular as it used to be, because that fan base doesn't have the disposable income that these 40-somethings that listen to country have. So it's a tough question, and I don't think there are any easy answers. Basically, it's going to take a big effort by a lot of parties to say, if we want local music scenes to continue to thrive, we're going to have to do X, Y, and Z. And a lot of it is going to have to be just stepping up to the plate, taking less money. And as much as people like to bang on a certain festival, the certain festival that was free this year, that's a step in the right direction. I think that was a very good step in the right direction, and everybody was whining that there weren't any good bands on the bill and the bands weren't very big. Well, those were the bands that really had balls, that really stepped up and said, okay, we want to play. And we don't care if we're not going to get paid a lot, we want to play. So my hat's off to everybody on that bill that actually stepped up and said, yeah, we'll work for nothing. And if we have more of that, I think you're going to see less venues closing, but otherwise it's nip and tuck. And really, when you have smaller venues that are trying to get national shows and they have to do $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 guarantees, that's a lot of people coming in. That means $20, $25 tickets. That means you got to have at least 300 people there. It's a rough game, man. It's just a rough game.